is we need to make sure it has market demand. And what a market demand is really is looking at ways that you do have a market out there for your product, for your services. That even your staff and your team know what they can come to you for as well. But there is market demand for this message that you're delivering, or this new product that you're getting out there in the marketplace, or this new way that you're going towards within your team, or whatever that might be. So it's a really, really great way for you to understand about market demand. Let me give you an example of what I mean here. Watch this, ready? This is what I did as a professional speaker. I realized that there are way too many speakers, coaches, online marketers, facilitators, trainers, authors. There are too much noise in this space. There's more noise today than any other time in history. So it's no longer good enough for me to just be another inspirational speaker, which then meant that I needed to become a bit of an expert. So what an expert is basically you become an expert of a specific field or a specific area. So one of my mates, his name is Brendan Burchard. Spoken on stage with him many times, but he started what he likes to call Experts Academy. And what we teach, right, is that if you go onto Amazon and you buy the 10 best-selling books in your same field and you read them all, then you go into TED.com and you watch all the TED Talks in your same field, and then you've immersed yourself both with the books and also the TED Talks. But then on top of that, then you go out and you interview other people in that same industry space. You know what that is called? It's called borrowed credibility. Let me give you an example of borrowed credibility. This here is a number of our partners here at the Speakers Institute. So in other words, guys, if you guys wanted to get on a TEDx stage, you need to be trained by us. If you wanted speaking engagements, paid speaking engagements through speaker bureaus, then you also need to be trained by us as well. We've also got Google, who partnered with us to launch the Speakers Institute. Gallup, who's a big part. They say, look, use our offices, the Gallup Institute here in Australia. We were nominated for a Telstra Business Award, and then we couldn't even become finalists because we hadn't been 3 years old yet, because apparently each Telstra business has to be 3 years in existence. We hadn't even been 3 years old. Linkfluencer, TribeLearn, etc., etc. These are all the businesses that we associate with that are a partner here at the Speakers Institute. Why do I show you this? I show you this for a couple of reasons. Obviously for credibility and positioning, but the main reason I show you is for what we like to call borrowed credibility. I'm using the credibility of TEDx, of Google, of ICMI, of Gallup, of Telstra, of Linkfluence, eWeb, TribeLearn. I'm using their credibility in association with my logo and my name, Speakers Institute. Does that make sense? So as you are getting your brand, your product, your service, your message out there in the marketplace, you need to, in order to become an expert, go out and interview other experts. So then you are then using their credibility in association with you. Now you've become a bit of an expert because you've read all the books, you've watched all the TED Talks, now you're interviewing all the other experts. Now you're an expert. But get this. It's now no longer good enough for you to be an expert. Because the expert market today is more saturated today than any other time in history. So what do we need to do then to differentiate ourselves from that? That is when we become a thought leader. Have you heard of this? Thought leadership. One of my mates, his name is Matt Church, and Matt Church started Thought Leadership Business School. And basically what he does, he teaches people how to be a thought leader. Let me give you an idea. I'm a thought leader, which means I get paid for how I think. It is. I'm a thought leader, which means I get paid for how I think. I don't really have a tangible product, other than obviously a book, etc., but really that's just ink on paper. I get paid for the knowledge in that book, which is basically what I think. I get paid to speak. I'm a thought. Let me give you just anchor this in of how a thought leader operates, right? Recently, I've got this client over in Singapore, and recently they asked me to work with one of their other clients. And I said, okay, great, no problem at all. Who are they? They said, we can't tell you. I said, okay. How can I prepare? What do they need from me, etc., etc.? They said, you can't prepare anything. We can't tell you who the client is. No preparation, just come. And so I'm thinking, they've never heard of me before. They're not telling me what they want from me, and I don't even know who the client is. But they were paying me top dollar. Like, you know, we're talking a lot of money, 5-figure plus. And they flew me over there to business class there in Singapore. There I am in Singapore, right? I got there. They put me in this black chauffeur-driven car. You can't even see out of the windows, right? They drove me to this, one of the tallest buildings there in Singapore. They put me in the lift. They took me to the top floor. I walked out there on the top floor, floor to ceiling, glass windows. You could see right over the whole of Singapore. Beautiful place, right? There was a table up the back and about 7 people over the other side of the table. And all they wanted was for them to ask me questions on how I think about their current crisis that they're going through. Why? Because I'd positioned myself as a crisis leader, crisis management, overcoming adversity, adversarial growth, etc., etc. So what a thought leader is, I get paid for how I think. But today there's more thought leaders than any other time in history. The thought leader market is saturated. The expert market is saturated. Everything below this line is saturated. And it's also all self-proclaimed. We've seen it. I'm a thought leader. I'm an expert. Book me. Yeah, I'm a thought leader. It's all self-proclaimed. So it's no longer good enough for you to just be a thought leader or an expert. So what we then do, we teach people how to be an authority. An authority is when the buck stops with you. An authority is when people seek your advice and your opinion on something. Let me give you an idea of what an authority is, right? If you want financial advice, you seek Kosh's opinion because he's the authority of that. If you want weight loss advice, you go to Michelle Bridges' opinion because she's the authority of that. If you want to look good, you go to Gokor, Trini and Susanna. What opinion do you want if I said Laurie Oakes? Politics. We know that. What if I said Jamie Oliver? Cooking. We know that, yeah? He's the authority of this space. What if I say Jamie Drew or Don Burke? Gardening. And Richard Branson? Entrepreneur. Yes, that's exactly right. They seek your advice and your opinion. So then my question to you is, what is your authority? Because I believe, and this is the last thing on our niche positioning system, is that we need to disrupt our space. One disruptive idea. Not 2, not 5, but one. One disruptive idea. I'll give you an example, right? So I had this car accident. And in this car accident, I had a moment of adversity. So then I started to then talk about my inspirational story. But then I realized there are too many other inspirational stories out there. And so then I immersed myself in resilience and overcoming adversity. Then I became a bit of an expert and a thought leader in resilience and overcoming adversity. But then I realized there are too many people out there that are also talking about resilience and overcoming adversity. So it was no longer good enough for me to stand out from the noise. So what did I do? I then thought, okay, I've immersed myself in this. I've now realized, did you know there are 72 books out there? In the book title, it says Bounce Back. There are 72 books out there, and in the actual title of the book, it says Bounce Back. So for me, I thought, wait a second, it's not about bouncing back. Because we all have these crises, these problems, and it's not about bouncing back to where we've been for us to get ourselves in the problem in the first place, but it's more about bouncing forward into what we can become. So I wrote the very first book on the planet that was called Bounce Forward. I disrupted my space. When everyone was talking about bouncing back, I spoke about bouncing forward. When everyone else was zigging, I started zagging. Let me give you another example. So what we do now, we actually also do train thought leaders and experts to get their message out there and disrupt their space. So this one lady, her name is Kerry. She's from Dubbo, and beautiful family down there. And she thought, look, Sam, I really want to get my message out there. What do I need to do? And I said, okay, look, let's look at this. And so then she thought, okay. We said, what do you love doing? She said, I just love talking to people, because she's in the sales and communication space, and, you know, very, very saturated market, massive areas of saturation as thought leader in sales and communication. She thought, look, I just love talking to people, talking to strangers, you know, on the plane, on the train. I just love talking to people that I've just met. And I thought, okay, look, did you know that, you know, when we're young kids, we're taught as young kids, don't talk to strangers. Do not talk to strangers. Don't talk to strangers. So she wrote the very first book on the planet called Do Talk to Strangers. She disrupted her space. When everyone else was zigging, she zagged. This is a disruption. So now she's standing out. She's now the authority of this space. Let me give you an example. Everything below the line is self-proclaimed. Everything above the line is how the industry sees you. I don't even have to say I'm the authority of bouncing forward. I am known as the authority of bouncing forward. Let me give you another example. We work with this other girl. Her name is Sarah, and she works in the finance space. And what do most people, you know, sort of in, you know, get rich quick saying? Get rich quick, get rich fast. And everyone's talking about get rich quick, get rich. You know, you can make $1 million if you sign up to my program. In 5 minutes, you'll make $2 million. Sign up now. Awesome. But she realized that, wait a sec, maybe it's not about get rich fast, get rich quick. So she disrupted that space. And she wrote the very first book on the planet called Get Rich Slow. She disrupted her space. When everyone else was zigging, she zagged. She stood out from the noise. Now all of a sudden she's regularly on Sunrise. You might have seen her. Her name is Sarah Ruglioff. And so what my encouragement to you is this, is what is your disruption? How are you getting above the line? Because everyone above the line, they're making more money. Everyone above the line is standing out from the noise. I wanted to make sure that I stood out when I met the Prime Minister of Australia. I wanted to make sure that my book and my content stands out from all the other noise. What is your disruption? What are you doing right now to make sure that even in your workplace, as a leader, as a manager, as a team, what do you need to stand out from everyone else? To not conform, because the reality is we're all misfits. Let's have a reality check here. We are misfits. We try to fit in as much as we can, and we can't really fit in because we're different. And that's okay. You know something? We're all different. No one's got your DNA. No one's got your fingerprint. But let me also say this, is that as entrepreneurs, or as people that want to be entrepreneurs, we come up with 65,000 ideas every single day. We do not have an ideas problem. We have a focus issue. Let me give you an example. 8 years ago, I came up with Bounce Forward. I'm still talking about it today. But one thing about an entrepreneur, they'll always move on to the next shiny thing, because Bounce Forward could have just been another idea, right? Yep, here's Bounce Forward. Yep, I write a couple of nice blogs, a couple of nice little Facebook Instagrams on it, or images, you know, great, that looks awesome, a couple of talks on it, great. Now let's move on to the next shiny thing. No. I did one thing and I did it really well and I went deep with it. I'm the #1 undisputed authority at bouncing forward. I've written 3 books on it. My greatest encouragement to you is focus on one thing, do it really well, go deep with it, and get that market penetration. Because what happened now is where most people look at, they go from the bottom up. But what I'm encouraging you to hear is go from the top down, because you know what's really interesting? I then got my market penetration in Bounce Forward, and now what am I doing? I'm doing speaker coaching and speaker training. I can do that because I've already become the authority at a field. My biggest encouragement to you is, what is your disruption? And how can you focus on one thing, do it really, really well, and go deep with that? This is our niche positioning system. Do we have any questions at all on this? Because I then want to take you through literally the blueprint is in how we do communicate and how we can put together a presentation, or even the actual blueprint of how to write a TED Talk or do a presentation. It's outstanding, John.
So how can you really figure what is that one thing that
That's great. You get a coach and you get a mentor, and make sure it's congruent with your why. Make sure it's in alignment with your strengths, make sure it has market demand, and make sure it's one disruptive idea. Obviously, we go very deep with this in all of our boot camps, but this is literally the blueprint of what you need to know. That's it. You need to make sure it's in alignment. Do you know why it has to be congruent with your why? Because in 8 years' time, you're still going to be talking about it. Do you know why it has to be in alignment with your strengths? Because in 8 years' time, you still need to be stimulated with it. Do you know why it needs to have market demand? Because in 8 years' time, you need to make sure that the market is still buying it. This is the blueprint. Yes. Sorry? Ah, good question. That's the age-old question, isn't it? Look, you can always educate your market. It's a lot more difficult than just simply giving the market what they want. You can go into a market with a brand new product that the market doesn't know anything at all about, but then you have to educate your market to tell them that they need it. However, on the flip side, you can find out, you can survey your market, and you can find out what are their problems, what are their issues, and then just give them value in those areas. So that's the age-old thing. AJ? Sorry? Haha, good question. If you go to an average mentor, you get average results. If you go to the best mentor, it will be the most expensive for you. Simple as that. So then it depends, where do you want to put your investment? Is it in a plasma? Is it in a car? Is it in a house? Or is it in a mentor? I don't know many people at all. I would say to be less than 0.1% of people that would spend more money on a mentor and a coach than what they would in their car or their house. You know something? I'm one of them. I've spent more money on mentors and coaches than what I have in houses and cars. Do you know why? Because I've realized my greatest ever asset is not in my house and not in my car. My greatest ever asset is here. So if you want massive transition from where you are today to where you want to be, you must be willing to take out your wallet and invest in yourself.